I'm a narcissist. Original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. Super. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Fans have been eagerly speculating about the future of the Daily Wire's version of BrettCooper's show following her sudden departure. With no official confirmation on whether it will continue, theories have been circulating. Recent remarks from Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring have only fueled the discussion. Boring disclosed that Brett was sent to acting lessons, leading many to believe the company had bigger plans for her beyond YouTube. Some speculate she was being prepared for a scripted series, possibly tied to the Daily Wire's expanding entertainment division. If true, this suggests her exit was not abrupt but rather part of a strategic shift. Meanwhile, excitement surrounds the Daily Wire's planned adaptation of Snow White, especially as controversy swirls around Disney's remake. Critics of Disney's version, particularly RachelZegler's portrayal of the iconic character, hope that the Daily Wire's take will provide a compelling alternative. If the project moves forward, it could mark a significant moment in entertainment, reflecting growing audience demand for fresh storytelling. So, was BrettCooper's departure part of a bigger plan? And with Hollywood facing increasing backlash, could Disney's Snow White be in trouble before it even premieres? One thing is certain. Fans are paying close attention.
Guys, and welcome to the BrettCooper Show. I am so happy that you guys found me over here on this new channel. I am so excited to start this new chapter with you guys. We have been hard at work behind the scenes, literally boots on the ground, me and my 80-year-old neighborhood grandpa putting shiplap up on the ceilings to cover up my 90s popcorn ceilings that I thought you guys would not find aesthetically pleasing on a set. We're literally in a room at my house. We put this all together. Anyway, I am so excited to bring this new show to you and show you guys what we have been working on. So my goal with this new show is to foster understanding, to go deeper and extract substance in the stories and issues that matter most to us, the issues that impact us on a daily personal basis.
The revelation of BrettCooper's acting lessons raises an intriguing question. Was the Daily Wire preparing her for a larger role in scripted content? If so, it suggests they had long-term ambitions for her beyond commentary. Now that she has departed, fans are left wondering whether the project will continue with someone else, or if it has been shelved entirely. While no official confirmation has been given, the fact that the Daily Wire invested in her development indicates they saw significant potential in her as an entertainer. The real question now is whether the project is still in motion, and if so, who might step in to lead it. As more details emerge, it will be interesting to see how the Daily Wire addresses the speculation. Will the show continue without Brett, or was it always designed around her? Fans are eagerly awaiting answers. What do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Has announced her exit from the Daily Wire. Listen, just from the very beginning, obviously everyone kind of knows the backstory. Last couple of weeks, there's just been some rumors floating around. Some people thought the rumors were ridiculous that she was leaving. Other people were saying that there was a lot of friction that was happening in the background at the Daily Wire. What we know for a fact is that BrettCooper did in fact announce her exit from the Daily Wire on Tuesday. While I was on a plane over to London, I had no Wi-Fi, so I landed and it was just an explosion of text messages. And, you know, I think because the exit came after there were so many rumors floating, people then assumed that all of the rumors were true. There were rumors that her best friend or her maid of honor in her wedding, which is true, obviously, Reagan Conrad would be taking over her show. And people were trying to deduce whether or not that meant that there was a lot of drama in the background. The Spectator did a summary. They're obviously quite respected. And they went through and clawed through all of the internet innuendo and noticed some things. Obviously, one big thing that has been noticed on the internet is that Brett seems to have deleted all of the photos that she had of her and her maid of honor from her profile. So that obviously signals to people that maybe some of that innuendo was true. And then the other aspect, which I was not even aware of until I read this article on The Spectator, was that apparently there was some movement. This is such a Gen Z thing, but I guess they were commenting on all of Brett's posts or something and telling her to wear blue on her last day if she's not allowed to talk about what happened. And then she wore blue. So who knows if she wore blue because it's a normal color to wear, and I wear blue probably twice a week, or if she was trying to signal something. Anyways, the long conclusion of this is, as far as separations go, it appears to be as amicable as it can be. She made the announcement. It was quite sad. She did seem like she was upset in it. And then it kind of cut to Jeremy Boring, the CEO. He said nice things about her. And unless she wants to contribute something else or he wants to contribute something else, I don't think there's any reason to look further into it because everybody is moving on in their lives. And that gets me to the next point. Everyone's like, what will happen to BrettCooper? BrettCooper is going to be absolutely fine. I mean, beyond fine. Frankly, by the time I hit the ground, I must have had, and I am not kidding, 25 messages from people from all walks of my life asking me, can I have a contact to BrettCooper? I'm talking about people that want to do her book, people that want to sign her for a show, people that want her to sign her for speeches. But the broader conversation that's going to be really interesting, and I think this is, like, again, it's broader, so it's not even specifically about Daily Wire, but people are kind of debating, you know, if this is what the Daily Wire is doing, and it looks like it perhaps is. And if I'm speaking wrongly here, we're going to find out shortly, obviously. But if we are having this former or this maid of honor take over her show, is that going to work? And that is really interesting because, you know, podcasting is a unique space. It is very personal. It's a new medium. When podcasting exploded, I mean, largely we can attribute that to Joe Rogan. Obviously, Daily Wire was one of the first companies to sort of try to carve out the space of podcasting and say, we're going to house a bunch of podcasters. I would say the Daily Wire and the Blaze kind of hit the ground running. And I think that nobody has really stopped to consider, can you just do that like late night TV? Can you do that like The View, where you can just keep swapping hosts and go, okay, well, now it's going to be the comment section with someone else. Is the audience going to like that? Or is the audience going to reject that? Now, if I'm just guessing, if this is my company and I'm running it, I'm going, no, I think podcasting is too personal. I think people sign up for a YouTube channel because they're signing up for that person. It remains to be seen. Obviously, they haven't done this yet. This will be an experiment for them. But I do think it starts a conversation about what it says about both Brett and the Daily Wire if they do it. Like, I think if I'm instructing what I would do, I would just create an entirely new show if they're going to bring in new talent. Otherwise, it kind of feels like, okay, well, is this just all scripted? Is that the real BrettCooper? Did she just train to do this show and that's not actually her personality? I'm asking these questions. I know the answer to this. Obviously, it is her personality. That is very much Brett's personality behind the scenes. This is how she talks. She's very bubbly and very excited. So I don't know if that's like the message that you want to send, that we can just like train someone else like a monkey to do the exact same thing rather than just create a whole new show around somebody else. Also, she's super young. She's got just a lot of gas left into the tank. She's going to be everywhere in 2025. So we just want to.
Here's your rewritten version with improved clarity, flow, and readability. Disney's decision to replace the beloved dwarfs with a diverse group of magical creatures sparked significant backlash, with many accusing the studio of straying too far from the original film's charm and legacy. Fans questioned whether Disney even understood what made Snow White a timeless classic in the first place. Amid this controversy, BrettCooper's emergence as a rival Snow White has completely shifted the conversation. Unlike RachelZegler, Cooper embraced the traditional fairy tale, positioning herself as a direct contrast to Disney's modernized take. This stark difference has fueled the ongoing debate over Hollywood's treatment of classic stories and whether audiences still crave the timeless magic of original fairy tales. However, Cooper's rise in the Snow White conversation hasn't come without drama. Behind the scenes, questions remain about the future of Evil Queen, the Daily Wire's take on the fairy tale. Cooper's sudden departure from the company has led to speculation about whether the project will continue or if the studio will cast someone else in the lead role. With no official confirmation on the film's status, fans are left wondering if Evil Queen will move forward as planned. The battle between these two Snow White adaptations is shaping up to be one of Hollywood's most fascinating showdowns. Will audiences reject Disney's revisionist approach in favor of a faithful retelling? And if Cooper is truly out, who will step up to challenge Zegler's controversial portrayal? #, the Disney controversy. Disney's struggles with Snow White go beyond just creative decisions. The backlash intensified when RachelZegler's comments about the original film resurfaced. In an interview, she rolled her eyes, joking that she had only watched the movie once and found it unrelatable. This dismissive attitude alienated longtime Disney fans, many of whom saw it as yet another example of Hollywood disregarding the stories that made the studio legendary. Critics accused Zegler of prioritizing an agenda over respecting the film's legacy, further fueling the outrage. Disney initially defended Zegler, but the backlash became impossible to ignore. The controversy reached a breaking point when the studio made an unprecedented move, delaying Snow White's release to 2025. Many saw this as a sign of trouble behind the scenes, with reports suggesting Disney was scrambling to rework the film to avoid another box office disaster, similar to recent flops from Marvel and the Marvels. Amid this chaos, BrettCooper's adaptation began gaining traction, offering fans the traditional story they had been asking for. Unlike Zegler's modernized, feminist reinterpretation, the Daily Wire's version promised to stay true to the original tale, bringing back the classic fairy tale magic that Disney seemed eager to abandon. #, Evil Queen, a true fairy tale? Produced by the Daily Wire, Evil Queen was marketed as a faithful adaptation, complete with a traditional Snow White and an actual prince, something Disney's version notably lacked. Suddenly, RachelZegler wasn't the only Snow White in town, and many fans who had rejected Disney's remake quickly rallied behind Cooper's film, praising it as the real Snow White. The contrast between the two films couldn't be more obvious. While Disney's Snow White was mired in controversy, backlash, and delays, Cooper's version was celebrated as a return to storytelling that respected its source material. Disney's attempt to reinvent the classic tale had alienated many fans, while Evil Queen appeared to be the adaptation audiences had been waiting for. #, BrettCooper's unexpected exit. But just as Cooper's rise in Hollywood was solidifying, she faced unexpected fallout with the Daily Wire. Her departure from the comments section stunned fans, with many speculating that her split from the company wasn't entirely amicable. Rumors swirled about internal conflicts, financial
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing feat that people are able to accomplish in animation. So many talented people go into these movies and do the best work in the world. And I really do encourage everyone to sit through the credits. The credits of animated movies are long, but for good reason. The amount of people who just work in the shading department and the shadows, and it is an amazing accomplishment for so many people. The greatest challenge as an actor is that, you know, when you're working on screen or you're working on stage, and I was raised on stage, is that you get this instant gratification from the audience and this instant connection with your fellow actors, where in an animated movie, you're alone in an ISO booth. And for me, I started in 2020, not knowing what a lot of these characters were going to look like, what things were going to sound like, the landscapes. I didn't really know. And I don't think neither did, you know, Skydance or Netflix. And so it was kind of really digging deep into that imagination that Elian has and that I had as a child and try to hold on to, and really following the guidance of Vicky Jensen, Jason Henkel, like everybody who worked on this movie. And they do such an incredible job. You're handing over a performance vocally to people who are going to give it a physicality. And that is really difficult. It feels like you're really letting go of something and putting your trust in a talented group of animators that have really done an incredible job on all.
Yes, and I have always said this, but I want to reiterate it, that I do not take for granted the fact that you guys take hours out of your busy lives to watch my videos, and I want to make sure that every single second of that time matters. I want to make sure that every single video I put out leaves you feeling more confident or empowered or smarter or more inquisitive about the world. And so because of that, we are going to be doing less frequent episodes. We're not going to be chasing the news cycle as much. I want to make sure that every single episode is intentional. This first season, in my eyes, is all about understanding where we've come from, where we're heading, and trying to fix the obvious disconnect between the generations, between values, and so much more. So I hope you are ready for even more hard truths, deeper dives than we have ever gone before, insightful interviews, and of course, lots of laughter and levity, because it would not be a BrettCooper production if we were not having fun through it all. But for this first episode of season 1 of the BrettCooper Show, I thought that we could just keep it simple and keep it between us. And I realize I just said keep it simple, but this episode kind of is not simple at all. It actually might get me into trouble, but we do need to talk about how the right runs the risk of literally losing everything that we've worked for if we continue down a path of mimicking the left's toxicity, aka
Disney's attempts to salvage Snow White only fueled more skepticism. Zegler's abrupt shift in tone felt calculated, and fans weren't fooled. Social media was flooded with side-by-side clips contrasting her earlier dismissive remarks, where she mocked the 1937 film as weird and outdated and called Prince Charming a stalker, with her newfound insistence that she deeply respected the original. The backtracking was obvious, and instead of winning audiences back, it only intensified the backlash. Meanwhile, BrettCooper was facing drama of her own. The situation took a shocking turn when Reagan Conrad, her former producer and even her maid of honor, was revealed as her replacement on the comments section. Many saw this as a betrayal, and Cooper wasted no time cutting ties. She unfollowed Conrad and severed connections with her former colleagues at the Daily Wire, scrubbing any traces of their past relationship from social media. The move sent a clear message: this was no amicable departure. With both Snow White adaptations caught in behind-the-scenes turmoil, the rivalry between Cooper and Zegler had become about more than just their films. It had evolved into a battle of competing ideologies, fan loyalties, and Hollywood's ongoing struggle between nostalgia and reinvention. As Disney scrambles to salvage its blockbuster and the Daily Wire navigates its own internal shakeups, one thing is certain: the Snow White showdown is far from over. To make matters worse, Disney's Snow White has reportedly been plagued by reshoots and internal struggles. Rumors suggest the studio is second-guessing its decision to cater to Zegler's vision, fearing that the backlash could lead to yet another high-profile flop. Meanwhile, Cooper's Snow White has only gained momentum, with fans praising her as the actress who actually respects the character and the fairy tale's legacy. Now, the real question is, what happens next? Zegler's version is still set to release in 2025, but after a long delay and months of negative press, will audiences even care? On the other hand, Cooper's take is shaping up to be a major cultural moment, proving that people still crave timeless stories rather than politically driven rewrites. What began as controversy over one Snow White has turned into a full-blown battle over the future of storytelling itself. And the biggest irony? The actress who is supposed to define the next generation of Snow White has found herself completely upstaged. Whether RachelZegler likes it or not, the real Snow White conversation is no longer about her. It's about BrettCooper.
Has helped her write the show every single day, 2 episodes, and has been Brett's best friend. And so, some of the accusations against Reagan have been really ugly, like that she's impersonating Brett. Well, that's unfair. If Reagan seems a bit like Brett, it's because she's Brett's best friend and one of the writers and the producer of the show. She's worked as much on the show every day on what the show would look like and feel like and sound like as Brett has these last 2 years. They've done that together. Obviously, they have a lot in common in terms of their delivery because they have helped craft the show together. Some of the rumors I saw that we sent Reagan to acting lessons to make her more like Brett, that's absolutely absurd and deeply offensive. Reagan's enormously talented. She's been an enormous part of building the comments section for the last 2 years. And I've never sent her to an acting lesson. She's never asked me to send her to an acting lesson. I've never asked her to do anything to be more like Brett. If anything, we've told her make the show as much your own as you can while maintaining the format. But she is like Brett because they are friends and collaborators, have been collaborators on the show. It's actually ironic because I did send Brett to various kinds of lessons as a performer, not acting lessons. Brett's a terrific actress and always, the entire time I've known her, she has been, as will be evident when you see the Pendragon cycle.
Disney's decision to reimagine Snow White as a strong, independent leader rather than a classic fairy tale heroine quickly alienated its core audience. Rather than honoring the beloved story, the studio seemed determined to rewrite it entirely. At first, Disney stood by Zegler, defending her vision for a modern Snow White. But as more of her comments surfaced, mocking the original film, rolling her eyes at its legacy, and dismissing the prince as a stalker, the backlash intensified. Fans accused her of disrespecting the very character she was supposed to bring to life. What should have been a career-defining moment for Zegler spiraled into a PR disaster. Then came BrettCooper. With no Hollywood background, no industry connections, and no intention of redefining Snow White, Cooper became an unexpected contender in the fairy tale battle. The Daily Wire's Snow White and the Evil Queen promised to stay true to the classic story, featuring an actual prince, a traditional heroine, and the magic that made the original film timeless. Suddenly, Zegler's modernized take wasn't just controversial, it was being directly challenged by a rival adaptation that promised audiences exactly what they had been asking for. What started as a simple Disney remake had turned into something much bigger, a battle over the future of storytelling. And with Disney's Snow White facing delays, reshoots, and overwhelming negativity, one thing was becoming clear. RachelZegler may have been chosen as the next Snow White, but BrettCooper was the one audiences were rallying behind. The Daily Wire seized the moment, unveiling their own rival adaptation, Snow White and the Evil Queen. Unlike Disney's divisive reimagining, the Daily Wire's version promised to embrace the timeless fairy tale, complete with a classic heroine, an actual prince, and a story that respected its roots. For Disney executives, Zegler's Snow White may have seemed like a marketing goldmine, an opportunity to appeal to modern audiences with a strong, independent protagonist who rejected traditional romance. But for fans, it was a slap in the face. The backlash was immediate and relentless. Social media exploded with criticism. Longtime Disney loyalists, many of whom had defended previous live-action remakes, were now voicing their frustration. The decision to replace the iconic Seven Dwarfs with CGI-rendered magical creatures only added fuel to the fire. Rather than addressing concerns or attempting to ease the backlash, Zegler doubled down. She mocked critics, dismissed their frustration, and insisted that her version of Snow White was superior. But then came the real problem. Her version was no longer the only one. With Disney's Snow White struggling under the weight of controversy, the Daily Wire saw an opportunity to provide an alternative. BrettCooper, an actress with no Hollywood background but a deep appreciation for classic storytelling, was cast in the leading role. Unlike Zegler, she wasn't trying to reinvent Snow White. She was simply bringing her to life, as audiences remembered and loved her. Now, the battle lines had been drawn. Disney's Snow White remained mired in negativity, reshoots, and delays, while Cooper's version had gained momentum among fans hungry for a faithful adaptation. The real question now wasn't just which Snow White would succeed, but whether Disney's approach to storytelling was losing its magic altogether. When Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring announced their rival project, Snow White and the Evil Queen, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Unlike Disney's modernized take, this version promised to remain faithful to the brothers' Grimm fairy tale, preserving its themes of love, magic, and heroism. But the biggest surprise? The role of Snow White went to BrettCooper. Best known for her political commentary and the comment section show, Cooper was an unconventional choice. She wasn't a Hollywood actress, she didn't have years of experience on the big screen, and she wasn't part of the industry machine. But what she did have was something Disney's version was missing: deep respect for the original Snow White. I was raised on the original Grimm's fairy tales, so I'm thrilled that we're bringing this iconic story to life for the next generation, Cooper said. Snow White is such a beautiful character, and I'm honored to be playing her. Like all the best fairy tales, this is a story with timeless values like love, friendship, and kindness, and I can't wait to share them. Her words were everything Zegler's weren't. She wasn't mocking Snow White. She wasn't trying to rewrite the story. She was embracing it, and audiences noticed. While Zegler dismissed the original 1937 film as outdated and weird, Cooper spoke about its importance. While Disney was replacing classic characters and forcing a modernized message, the Daily Wire's Snow White was Almost immediately, Snow White and the Evil Queen began gaining traction, drawing in fans who had already written off Disney's remake. Social media buzzed with praise for BrettCooper's version, which was widely seen as the only adaptation that truly respected the original fairy tale. Meanwhile, RachelZegler's take continued to face backlash, with many accusing her of mocking the beloved classic. As criticism against Disney's Snow White intensified, Zegler, who had previously defended her modernized vision, suddenly began backtracking. In an apparent attempt to win back audiences, she started calling the 1937 film iconic and acknowledging its dedicated fanbase. But the damage had already been done. Fans weren't convinced by her sudden change in tone, and viral side-by-side comparisons of her earlier dismissive remarks versus her newfound appreciation for the original only exposed the inconsistency in her statements. Meanwhile, Snow White and the Evil Queen continued to gain momentum, shifting the conversation away from Zegler and toward an actress who wasn't even part of Hollywood's elite. The contrast between the two films became impossible to ignore. One remained faithful to the classic fairy tale, while the other seemed more focused on rewriting it. With Snow White and the Evil Queen winning over audiences, Disney found itself scrambling to salvage its embattled remake. Social media continued to erupt with criticism, with many calling Zegler's sudden shift in attitude nothing more than desperate damage control. Even Disney appeared to recognize the growing problem. Reports of reshoots and a potential release delay only added to speculation that the studio was second-guessing its approach. The financial stakes were high. Snow White would reportedly need to earn over $300 million just to break even. But with audiences increasingly rejecting Disney's modernized approach and rallying behind Cooper's faithful adaptation instead, the question remained, was Disney's Snow White doomed before it even hit theaters? Set to release in March 2025, the controversy surrounding the film showed no signs of fading. Zegler's attempts at damage control seemed too little, too late, as her sudden reversal on Snow White only fueled further skepticism. Fans who had once been cautiously optimistic had already turned away, frustrated by her dismissive attitude and Disney's drastic changes to the beloved story. Meanwhile, Snow White and the Evil Queen continued to gain traction, with audiences eager for a version that honored the fairy tale's origins. As BrettCooper's adaptation drew more attention, the entire narrative around Snow White had shifted, leaving Zegler struggling to reclaim control. Now, the real question is whether audiences will embrace Disney's reimagined Snow White or reject it in favor of a faithful adaptation that stays true to the original. And if Snow White and the Evil Queen surpasses expectations, what does that mean for Hollywood's growing trend of rewriting beloved classics? One thing is clear, Zegler may have set out to redefine Snow White, but it's Cooper who has rewritten the conversation, proving that audiences still crave timeless stories over forced reinventions.